Almost 2 billion people, about 26% of the global population, practice Islam today. Yet it remains one of the most widely misunderstood spiritual traditions. The Western image of the faith, heavily associated with violence or oppression, grew out of centuries of deliberate geopolitical propaganda. To understand the reality of the religion, we have to look past modern media shortcuts and track down the specific origins of these myths. When we separate verifiable archaeological and legal facts from the political rhetoric of the past, we see how human history is written and how it can be weaponized. Take the idea that Islam spread exclusively by military force. That narrative traces back to the Crusades, where European leaders used demonization to justify campaigns toward the Holy Land. The economics of the early Islamic Empire reveal a different priority. This diagram illustrates the function of the jizya, a specific tax paid by non-Muslim subjects in exchange for autonomy and protection. Because early Muslim rulers relied on this revenue, they faced a direct economic disincentive to force mass conversions. As a result, for at least 2 centuries after the Prophet Muhammad's death, the majority of people living within the empire remained non-Muslim. The actual vectors for the global expansion of the faith were maritime trade routes and Sufi mystics. The religion reached places like Indonesia, the world's most populous Muslim nation, entirely through peaceful merchant interactions, without the presence of an invading army. While military conquests established a political empire, it was peaceful economic and cultural exchange that built the global faith. Another persistent myth is that Islamic warfare is inherently lawless. This idea is fueled by medieval propaganda in modern extremist groups who hijack the classic legal term jihad for political agendas. But early Muslim armies operated under the CR, an extensive military code established in the 7th century. To put that in perspective, this early iteration of the Geneva Convention on screen wouldn't exist to regulate modern Western warfare for another 1,200 years. Under the CR, the rules of engagement were strict. It expressly prohibited targeting civilians, women, children, the elderly, the sick, and even monks secluded in their monasteries. It also mandated environmental and human dignity protections. Soldiers were forbidden from burning fruit trees or poisoning water. Prisoners of war could not be executed. They had to be fed and treated humanely. Reviewing the CR proves that early Islamic forces were bound by a regulated humanitarian framework that directly contradicts the caricature of savage warfare. Regarding women's rights, the perception of inherent oppression stems from colonial powers conflating regional tribal customs with actual Islamic law. To understand the rights established in the 7th century, we have to look at the Western legal baseline. Until the late 1800s, British common law operated under coverture. When a woman married, her legal identity was absorbed by her husband, stripping her of legal control over her property and wages. This table compares that British system to Islamic law established over a millennium earlier. Under 7th century texts, a Muslim woman possessed an independent legal identity. She retained sole ownership of her dowry and her inheritance, and held the capacity to run a business and sign contracts in her own name. We see this economic agency in figures like Fatima al-Fihri. In the year 859, she used her independently inherited wealth to found the University of Al-Qarawiyyin in Morocco, the oldest continually operating educational institution in the world. Evaluating early Islamic society through an assumed Western timeline of legal progress hides its role as a pioneer for female economic and legal independence. There is also a theological myth claiming that Muslims worship an ancient moon deity. This narrative gained traction in the 1990s through fabricated connections to archaeological ruins excavated in the Levant. Linguistically, the claim is baseless. The word Allah is simply the Arabic and Aramaic translation for the God of Abraham. Christian Arabs use the word Allah in their own scripture today. This linguistic confusion feeds the assumption that Islam is strictly an Arab or Middle Eastern religion. Modern data from the Pew Research Center shows that while the Middle East is the historical cradle of the faith, only 20% of Muslims live there today. Roughly 60% reside in the Asia-Pacific region. The 4 countries with the largest Muslim populations, Indonesia, Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh, all sit outside the Arab world. Both the linguistics and the demographics confirm that Islam is a pan-Abrahamic, globally distributed faith rather than an isolated regional cult. Stripping away the geopolitics reveals an early Islamic society that was regulated, diverse, and pioneering in its legal frameworks. When we allow political agendas to dictate our history, we create artificial divisions and hide the shared roots of human progress. Deconstructing these narratives replaces a set of caricatures with a context-driven history. It offers a framework for evaluating how the stories of our global society are built, filtered, and occasionally distorted.